That's what the deep state is. The deep state is a cultural problem. The deep state is not just all those GS-12s you were talking about.
What is a GS-12?
Government employees.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You make a
Level
certain
level
pay
of
rate.
it. Okay.
Right.
We're a bureaucrat.
Yeah. They could work in any three-letter agency or government department or whatever. There's
It's
so
not
many of
necessarily
them.
like spies. It could be people that work for the DOT.
Right.
Okay. Transportation.
But they generally believe the same things, and they generally believe the same things that Netflix writers do, that college professors do, that people in Congress do, that the entire professional classes our country believes in as a whole.
I talk about this a lot of times on like IRL and stuff on our show here. The average person that lives their life day to day, they maybe consume an hour of news per week. They're busy getting their kids to school. They're busy worried about their own job. They're busy worried about, their parents and making sure that their kids are going to be able to get to college or have a future. And even so far as when you talk about like the deep state, whenever I'm talking about the deep state, I try to remember that the deep state is the vast majority of them are people that think they're doing the right thing and are just looking out for their jobs, because the deep state is just the entrenched bureaucracy. They're the people that work at State Department, but they're not just the heads of the State Department. They're the people 3 levels down, the GS-12s, GS-11s, government employees that they're like, man, I got to make sure that I have enough money to pay my car payment this month and pay my bills, and I have some money tucked away, and I have, and they're worried about their future. And when you talk about the deep state in that way, when you talk about them as just people that are looking out for their own family, it makes the average person say, I relate to that and I understand. And it makes the average person stop thinking that, oh, you're a crazy guy talking about deep state conspiracy guys. Mm-hmm. But you're actually a normal dude talking about normal administrators, because everyone has dealt with some kind of government person like that.
Everybody's been to the DMV.
Well, exactly.
Thank you for making that point. Like that. All right.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because that is very important. Our whole job here is to bridge the communication to people that are called Joe Sixpack and that type of garbage. But,
and no offense to anyone.
Derogatory. I mean, unfortunately, but it's the common man.
Yeah. And I don't want to sound offensive to anyone sitting at the table, but the more that we talk about it in a way that the average person doesn't understand, the more distance we put between us and the people that we need to empathize with what you guys have gone through and how it relates to their lives as well, because we want to prevent this stuff. Exactly. So
that's what I want to touch on. So that's what the deep state is. The deep state is a cultural problem. The deep state is not just all those GS-12s you were talking about.
What is a GS-12?
Government employees.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You make a certain
level
pay
of
rate.
it. Okay.
Right.
We're a bureaucrat.
Yeah. They could work in any 3-letter agency or government department or whatever. There's
it's
so
not necessarily
many of them.
like spies. It could be people that work for the DOT.
Right.
Transportation.
But they generally believe the same things, and they generally believe the same things that Netflix writers do, that college professors do, that people in Congress do, that the entire professional classes our country believes in as a whole.
And to illustrate that point,
a psyop.
To illustrate your point, in D.C., which is where the bureaucracy is located, it was 96% Kamala Harris, 4% Donald Trump. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that you're up against a culture. And to get into professional life, you're going to go through the cultural filter of college, right? I got out of the Marine Corps. I went on the GI Bill. They paid me to go to college. It was great. But the whole time there, I knew this is not landing me a job. This is not going to do anything concrete for me other than that paycheck I get for showing up. And so I never picked up my college degree. I've never looked at it. It doesn't matter. I've made my life separate from that, because I will never be invited to real professional life in America or anywhere in the West. All right. And this is what young people, and I think especially young men, are waking up to right now. So understand the system, and that's what we're up against, is a very particular system. And despite what you may have heard, we do live in a democracy. The threat to this system is populism, which is why I wasn't worried in prison. I knew he was going to win, and I didn't think it'd be particularly close. I saw what was happening. You don't quite have your finger in the beat of things like maybe you do on the outside, but you put the pieces together, and this can change. We are not on a set road. I believe that you're not going to get back the country or the West that we had. That's changed and maybe irrevocably gone, but that doesn't mean we have to walk into something that sucks forever. I'm very hopeful for the future. And I don't mean just the next 4 years, which I would think will likely be the next 8 years of presidential victory.
I think we're going to win because, like when I was in prison, blacks, Hispanics, whites, everyone loved Trump.
Trump country.
When they saw him get shot in the ear, and they saw him jump up and act like a warrior, raise his fist as a reaction of a warrior, they're like, "Yeah, man, Trump's an OG, legit OG." And one guy's
made
like,
him a felon.
"No question." And he's a felon. They like that because, hey, now they know that he knows what it's like. They liked him for the First Step Act already anyway, but now they respect him as a man. That's where he won the working class vote right there.
I'd actually like to throw something out there really quick because we talked about the deep state. And I think that part of the reason why we have a bunch of people that think that we're conspiracy theorists is because we're not definition matching. We're not picture matching. I can say, hey, Stuart, we're on a construction site. I need you to bring a hammer to work. But I needed a tack hammer. You brought a jackhammer. You know what I'm saying? Or a sledgehammer.
Stuart.
Right?
So
he always does that.
The point is that the definition, if I don't say, hey, I need you to bring a tack hammer, then you're going to bring something else. So we have to definition match. What is the deep state? So let's talk about that. So our founding fathers defined tyranny as the consolidation of all three branches of government into a centralized power, like what they were dealing with the crown, right? The crown wrote the laws, adjudicated the laws, and enforced the laws. Okay. So the founding fathers decided to break all these, these branches of government up and put checks and balances. I could get into all that another time, but the point is
another time. Yeah.
Yes. The checks and balances within the system keep tyranny at bay.
That's the theory.
If you corrupt the checks and balances of the system, you don't need to corrupt the whole system. You just need to corrupt the things that keep tyranny at bay, right? So if you have a single globalist corrupting entity that is able to influence and control the checks and balances within our system, then they can essentially centralize the three-branch government system under their rule. Now, that's essentially what happened after 1913. It's what happened with the Federal Reserve. We also look at FDR and the bureaucracy and the creation of the fourth branch of government, right? Which is essentially a consolidation of all three branches of government into a centralized power, because the bureaucracy has its own laws/regulations that they write. They also have their own regulation enforcement agents, executive branch. They also have their own administrative courts that are outside the federal court system. So they are writing laws, they're enforcing those laws, and they are adjudicating those laws in a system that's outside the federal system. That's tyranny. Okay, so we have the circumventing of the three-branch government system, centralizing power that way. They do that, and then they push through all the legislation necessary to create the fourth branch of government, the bureaucracy. Then these two things work together to push a culture that enforces this illusion that we are free. You see? And then we move closer and closer toward tyranny. More and more lawfare is done against people that are innocent. And then we look at the larger picture on a global scale. And what we see is that the UN, WEF, the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, whatever. All of these entities, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, all of these international entities are the global deep state. Okay? They are the ones that are centralizing power in all countries around the planet.
Yeah, it's worldwide, yeah.
And then what they're doing is they're taking that apparatus and they're placing it in the federal government. So now we have a international deep state, we have a national deep state. And then from that national deep state, they start going into the states and start messing with things, and then they create little state-like deep states, like what we deal with in Arizona.
In California.
Okay? And California, okay? So then this is how the system is exponentially corrupted. And it's all reinforced through the mockingbirds and the media pushing the psyop.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Do you do parties? Because I'll tell you, man, I'm learning a lot from you. It's really amazing. Well said.
The idea that there is essentially a monoculture that's looking to really control influence. That's why I mentioned, in DC, it was 96% Kamala Harris and 4% Donald Trump. And one of the things that we've heard talked about, and I would love to see happen, is actually breaking up the bureaucracies and sending them to like different parts of the country. So the Department of Agriculture would probably be better suited, instead of being in DC, have the Department of Agriculture be in Iowa or be in Nebraska, right? And if you take first of all, I've heard that when you move a business like that, 20% or so of the people decide they don't want to move, so they quit. So that's a great way to downsize right off the bat. And then on top of it, a big incentive for people to be in the bureaucracy is they want to go to the cool guy cocktail parties. They want to be able to talk to people in other agencies. They like the DC atmosphere. They're making, six figures. They're making good money, and they've got, a side hustle or whatever where they're getting incentives and stuff, and they can hang out with all the cool people there where the movers and shakers are. I mean,
You want to be the elite.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've
That
all
could be said for L.A. and New York. For
But there should be an elite. That's my point. Don't get caught up in whether it's republic or a federalism or your
It's elite versus the
individually chosen system. It doesn't matter. What matters is the people who make up that system. Are they focused on things like honor? Does that matter to the people that form your government and neighbors? Because you know what matters more than laws? Your neighbors.
But how do you, when it comes to people that are in government, right, or in the bureaucracy, which we have less influence on who's going to be in the bureaucracy, but the American people still do have the ability to choose their elected representatives, at least to a very, very large degree. And I think that anyone that would say, oh, no, they're all chosen, I would say, well, look at Donald Trump. Right. I was, again, of the opinion that he wasn't going to make it, but clearly I was wrong. So how do we better vet the candidates, especially when everyone's allowed to vote and not everyone that votes is interested in finding out anything beyond what letter is after their name?
Blockchain. That's the answer. Crypto, blockchain. We have to have total transparency.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.